I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do project 3, which is design a web page with div tags. In particular, we're going to be using Dreamweaver's AP div tags. Now, the AP stands for absolute positioning. So, wherever we put these div tags is where it's going to appear on the page. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to click HTML document, and we're going to immediately click File, Save As. And what this is going to be called is um, example, and then underscore, and then I'm going to use a convention in programming called camel case, so class schedule, just because I feel it's easier to read, .html. Alright, so you'll put your name where example is, and then click save. Alright, now that we have that saved, we're going to have to give this a title, so I'm just going to call it my schedule. And the next thing to do is we are going to start putting divs on the page. Now there's one little thing that I'm going to do just to make this page a little bit more interesting, and I'm going to give it a background color. So I'm going to click Page Properties, and the background color I'm going to pick is this light gray. Maybe a little darker. So I'll go to that. Yep, okay. So now when I put these div tags on there, there'll be a little bit of contrast on the page. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and we will go to the Insert panel, and we're going to be inserting a layout object called the AP div. And once again, that stands for absolute position. So I'm going to grab this div tag and put it in the middle of the page. And I just grabbed it with that little rectangular bar in the upper left-hand corner. You can end up resizing this with these other handles that are the little squares all around the div tag, whichever size you want. So I'm going to make it just about this big. And now we're going to go start putting stuff in it. So the very first thing that we're going to put in is the class schedule, which I already have typed up just to save time. So I'm going to copy this from a text file so that I know that it's not going to be grabbing any extra information. It's strictly the text, and then click paste. Alright, so like I talked about in class the other day, we want some contrast on this page. So it's really hard to read dark on dark. So let's go ahead and modify the tag. So over in the Styles panel, I'm going to click on APDiv1, which is this thing that I just put on the page. And we can manipulate the colors on this. I'm going to make the color, and this refers to the text color. I'm going to make that white. So that should now stand out for us. I'm also going to bump this down a little bit, and with CSS we could do this other ways, but just 2 little clicks here for me is good enough. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to dump another div tag inside of this div. That's called a nested div. So let's go ahead and add that next. So I'm going to click Insert, Layout Objects, AP Div once again. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and select the whole thing, and I'm going to make it as wide as this box for a reason I'll explain in a minute. But inside of this, I'm going to put example student class schedule. Alright. And what I want to do is I want to make this a paragraph. And then once it's a paragraph, I'm going to go ahead and format, align to the center. So the reason why I made this box the same width as the box that it's in is so that it's exactly in the middle. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. just so it's not overlapping with the text I put down there. And inside this box, I want to make sure this is selected. This is div 2, so AP div 2. I'm going to be changing the text size of that. So from the handout that you'll get, I'm going to want Georgia times Roman times and a serif. So this is just a particular font sequence that, depending upon whatever computer that you're loading this page from, it would first load Georgia, and if Georgia is not a font that's installed on that computer, then it'll go to Times New Roman. If that's not installed, then Times, and then a plain old serif font. And I'll explain what the difference is with fonts in class. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and the second selection in your box should be exactly what we want. I'm going to want the size of this to be extra, extra large. And we're going to go with a custom color. Now your sheet calls for pound 00F. So I'm going to click apply, and that gives a blue color. Now I'll let you play around with that, but you want a high contrast. Alright, next the background color for this div is going to be pound CCC. So triple C. I'm going to click OK. Alright, so that does stand out a little bit. I'm going to click OK. Now back in this box, there was properties to set as well. So now I'm going to go back to that first page. I got to select it. So this is div 1, and the background color is what we're going to set. Okay, the background color is going to be, I'm just going to type in the property here, background dash color, and we want this to also be a gray color. In this case, it's going to be triple C. Alright, so there they match. Alright, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to set this back to black just so that it contrasts again now that we can read it. Oh, I take that back. I want it to match the other text. So that was 00F, which is blue. Okay, now in the lower left corner, we're going to go ahead and put men are high as the schedule. So I'm going to add another div down here. I want layout objects AP div. And down here we're going to type Mentor High School. And we're going to place that right in the bottom left corner. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here. Now what you can do is you can hit the left and right keys on your keyboard to shift a box precisely. And the other thing that I'm going to do with this is now our third div. I'm going to click in there. I'm going to make sure that this font is exactly the same as the other. That way all of our fonts match. So I should have that. I'm going to double check. I didn't set that one. Click apply. Alright, so then we're working with the same size there. Now with this text, it's too far up against the border, so it makes the M's hard to read over here because they start to merge together. So there's a property that will push that out a little bit. So that's our first div. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that over here in styles. And this should be under block. Yeah, text indent 5 pixels. Let me click apply. and that pushed out our text a little bit further right. So that's helpful. And if that's not enough, we could make it 10. All right, so I'll click OK. And then lastly, we wanted to put the cardinal. Now I have to adjust this right here. So let me take this. I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to come in like this. All right. Next, I'm going to put the Menor cardinal right over here. Okay, and now we're going to insert a cardinal into the lower right corner. Now the type of image that I would suggest you get is either a PNG or a GIF file, and the reason being is because they will be able to have the transparent background that will blend in with the background that you have. So here's the one that I'm going to be grabbing from the desktop, and you can see how you can see through it. So let's go ahead and insert a layout object, an AP div. I'm going to slide this over to the corner and then click inside of it. I'm going to go to the insert menu and click insert image. I'm going to find that cardinal, and again this is a GIF image, so it will allow for a transparent background, so any of the extra information around the cardinal here it will ignore. With an image tag, we always had to put in that alternate text, so I'll put in MHS cardinal right here. And since it's super huge, I'm going to shrink it down to a more appropriate size. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a paragraph and then center that. So I'm going to go to Format, Align, Center. Now this box, I really want this in the corner. So I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to use the arrow keys to get it right about where I want it. I'm going to click off of this. Alright, so now that we have all that information on here, this has everything that we need on it, so let's go ahead and preview it, and I'll preview it in Chrome. Got to save it. And here's how it will look in a browser. Now it is a absolute positioning, so unlike the last project that we did where the page would actually move to the size of our browser, this is always fixed. It's always permanently going to be at the coordinates that were set when we dropped that first div in there. So that will be the difference between project 2 and project 3. But here, if you wanted to create a basic page that presents the information, it's never going to change. This is one way to do it with div tags. Lastly, we're going to change the style of this a little bit more. This goes off of the project sheet, and now we're just adding our artistic sensibility to it. So let's go ahead and change the blue to black, and that should give us a higher contrast. So I'm going to double click on this div1 tag, and I'm going to change it to black. Additionally, I'm going to change the header value to black as well. That was in div2. And back in div1, we have this outside border that's blue. So let me click into that. Border. And then for this, I'm going to choose, well, actually, I'm going to make this contrast with the page itself. So I'm going to choose white for this. It's going to be solid, although you can choose one of many different types. So I'm going to click solid, and I'm going to make it as big as I possibly can. So now it's distinctive. You can definitely see it. I'm going to show you a couple of properties that we can set as well. The first one is called opacity. I'm going to set this to 0.95. And there's a browser compatibility that goes with that called filter. This is just for Internet Explorer, really. I'm going to set the alpha to opacity equals 95. So this is for Chrome, and then this is for IE. And what that's going to do is that's going to make this a little bit transparent. So another nice thing that we might be able to do here is put a background image in. So I'm going to click this Page Properties button, click Appearance. Under Background Image, I'm going to select that cardinal. We'll just reuse that. That way that'll give us a little repetition on the page. But that's too many cardinals for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch that. I'm going to take it off of this and I'll put it in the CSS. Oop, want cardinal. And then I want just this to repeat as a row across the middle. But it's a little bit too high. So I want it down a little bit lower. To do that, I have to go to the body style. And I'm going to click in Add Additional Elements. There's a whole list of ones in here for the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the background position Y. And I already know that this box is about 160 pixels down. So I'm going to say about 145 pixels. And this probably won't load until I reload the page. So let's preview it. And that pushed it down. Plus now you can see the opacity, that's the transparency of the box itself. So now I can kind of see through, I can see the repetition of the cardinal. And the other thing that I might want to touch up is move this down because it's nudging up into the heading a little too much, and these two sections blur together. If I were to blur my eyes a little bit, I should see distinctive blocks of things on the screen that my eye immediately draws to. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that by just simply clicking here. I'm going to hit enter one time. Okay, so let's take a look at this again, see if that looks a little better. And those are some simple tricks that you can do to finish up your page. Now keep in mind that that background image will also float with the browser, so if you're using IE, this might move around a little bit, but if you're looking at it in Chrome, it's going to be slightly different. So we'll talk about those differences more in class, but for now, make the page your own. You can add different colors in the background and play around with that a little bit and have fun with it.